Okay, so we are talking about this Java constructor or a default constructor, and I actually am writing some program. So I hope the program you have seen that I am trying to create a class that is bike. Okay, not going to write the program again because it will take some time. So let us discuss. So I have created a class that is name of something like this bike one, right? So we have created a class on this name of bike one, and then we have write another part that is known as bike one and some system.out.println, that is the scenario we have written there in the part of the scenario, and bike is created. This is the method, and then we are creating a main method that is public static void main, that string us, and that constructor we have created that bike one, and inside we have called that. So the bike one, whatever the things have been called. So bike one is our constructor that we have created, and then we have called it inside a particular program. So at a scene that when we are actually going to write or run this particular program or compile this particular program, so that will be giving us output that bike is created, that we have mentioned in our second line, that bike one system out.println, that bike is created. So it is the creation of that constructor bike one we have created, but no means there is no parameters we have used, right? Only the constructor is created, a method is created, and we didn't initialize any kind of parameter there. No parameters was set up there, only some particular kind of method, that bike one, that have been created, and inside the particular line then segment, that system out of println bike is created, and then in the particular main method section of this public static void main string, as in that particular main method section, we have created that bike one, we, that is some new bike, we have called that particular default constructor that we have created there. So at the time of running the particular program, the constructor is created without any kind of parameters. We didn't create any kind of parameters, right? Or we didn't initialize any kind of parameters there. So the purpose, the use of default constructor to provide some default values to our object. Some default values we are going to provide. So in this case, some default values like a zero or null, anything this type of values will be provided to our default constructor that we are going to create and calling in our particular program. Now there is another particular type of constructor that we are talking about, that is parameterized constructor. So default constructor on the scenario of this parameterized constructor. So what is the part of this parameterized constructor? So in the part of this default constructor, we didn't mention any kind of parameter, right? No parameter was mentioned there. But in the part of this parameterized constructor, there will be a specific number of parameters is mentioned. Some parameters we are going to talk about, some specific number of parameters is mentioned here, and talking about the specific number of parameters, that's why where we are mentioning some parameters, it is known as the parameterized constructor. So what is the purpose of this parameterized constructor? To provide some different values to our object. So providing some values, or not a default zero or null values, instead of providing some default values, we are using some parameters to provide different type of values with respect to that. So this is for parameterized. So default constructor, there is no parameters and some default values will be provided, but in the case of parameterized constructor, some parameters will be there, and with respect to that, some different values will be provided through the parameterized constructor. Right. So now if I write a particular example for a parameterized constructor, so it will be very easy to understand. Right. So writing a program for parameterized constructor, suppose we have created a class of student, right? Suppose a class student we have created. ID we are using here, ID for some particular scenario, for providing some ID, right? Then some name. So for the name we are using this string, right? So int ID, and for the name we are using some string particular type of data, right? Now suppose a particular scenario, Okay, now tell me, whatever the scenario I have written here, whether all the things are written correctly or there are any thing that I have written wrong.
Sir, one parenthesis, bracket is missing, sir. Closing bracket.
Okay, no. You're talking about this, right? So this closing bracket I have opened, so it is not closed with, right? Because there are some more lines of code I am written, but apart from that, whether any keywords I have written wrongly. Looking this particular scenario, string, it is a keyword. So whether the S will be capital or small.
Capital, sir.
Capital, sir.
So that's why I'm asking. So these are the things that we need to look for, because if this small thing we are going to mistake, this mistake, it will give us an error. It will not compile correctly, right? So these are the scenario that we need to look for. Fine. So okay, let me continue the rest of the program part. While I am writing the program code, you will kindly write your names in the chat box for the attendance. Okay, so at the same time, the both work will be done. So you will write your names in the chat box by the time.
Sir,
Yes.
sir notes कब दीजिएगा?
Note we will provide into the LMS by tomorrow or next Wednesday. और इन मीन्स तुम लोग को पता है कि सारा जो क्लासेस होता है उसका रिकॉर्डिंग तुम लोग को यूट्यूब में मिलता है.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So you can also follow that particular YouTube channel where you can find the recordings, and apart from that, the notes I will provide whatever the topics we have covered till now by Wednesday. Okay, we are unable to provide because the thing is not in our departmental hand right now. So when all the things will be done, because your registration and all these things need to be completed, then we are going to give you the full access. So when you people have your LMS ID and password, from there you will have all the notes and all the things will be you people will be getting, right? So I think the registration process will be over for or will be going to over very soon, and then you people have your LMS ID and password where you are going to get the notes also. But before that, I'm trying to look for some alternate scenario where I can provide the notes, right?
So हम लोग का external ये मैं में होगा क्या?
External.
मैं में होगा.
As per the notice that was circulated by GUT, so there are some date was mentioned up to the 5th June, May or June, where the internal exam, I mean the theory and the practicals, all the exam will be conducted at that time. That was the deadline given by the GUT.
Sir, अभी internal का कुछ?
इंटरनल एग्जाम फिलहाल के लिए अभी तक उसका कुछ प्लान नहीं है, क्योंकि अभी तुम लोग का क्लासेस शुरू हुआ है, तो इतना जल्दी इसका इंटरनल नहीं होगा. but there will be internal exam maybe at the end of, it is February, March, at the end of March or mid of the March. So that will be all the things will be notified. Don't think about those particular things because it is in our hand. We will decide and let you know all the information when the things will be discussed. Okay.
सर अगर ऐसा चलता रहेगा फिर तो हम लोग हर सेमेस्टर में पीछे ही रहेंगे रेगुलर वालों.
So that is the scenario when the notice was issued by the DOT side. So we have also seen that and we have discussed on that. So we will have a plan where the things can be cope up, because it is also difficult for us, because considering now that regular of third semester is now going to move for the fourth semester, right? So you people are lateral right now, so having the third semester classes, but the third year semester regular will be going to commence for the fourth semester regular classes, right? So we need to cope up both of you at the same time. So let us decide what is the best for you so that we can manage, or you can also put all of you into the same scenario where you people can also have the fourth semester or whatever the things we are going to talk and discuss. Okay, so you people will get to know. Just give us some time. We are discussing and we are thinking on it. Okay. We also know that because if this scenario goes on, so every time in every semester you people are going to be behind for at least 2 or 3 months. That is not good for you and or for us also, because we need to discuss all the things in a repeated time for regular students and for also you people at the same time, right? So that is also a difficult thing for us also. Okay, suppose this is the particular scenario where, and again just a particular thing, that is suppose s1 dot display, that is a particular part, and suppose another part, that is s2 dot display. So there are two things that we have created. Suppose in this part s2 dot display, and lastly the closing bracket, whatever the scenario. Suppose this is a particular program. Now the thing is, the scenario in this particular program, we have created a class named student1. A class has been created into the initial, that is a student1, and in that particular class we have mentioned some id as an integer and name as a string. Now, in the part of the student one, the class, we are calling, we are creating a constructor, that is a parameterized constructor. What is the term when we are discussing the parameterized constructor? That we are going to mention some parameters. While in the scenario of default constructor, if you people just remember that while we have created a particular scenario of bike, we just created a constructor that is bike one, right? But we didn't mention anything. We didn't mention any parameters inside the particular bracket. But here, in the case of this particular student particular constructor, the student one the class, and inside this particular student one class we have created a student constructor where we have actually mentioned some particular parameters like I in I string n. So I n, these are the particular parameters we have actually created for by which we are going to assign some particular values and we are going to display that particular values, right? So in the later part, into the main method, that is public static void main string args, into this particular main method we are going to put some values into the particular class, that is the student one, that particular classes, and in that particular classes we are going to pass some values into our objects. As per the scenario, we have mentioned the end I. So I, what is the I is referring here? That is some type of ID. So the value of I is referring to some particular IDs and value of n is referring to some particular name. So as per the scenario, we have mentioned here that is in I and string and whatever the scenario we have mentioned here as per the scenario, we are providing some values to our classes and objects, right? So this I, the triple one is the ID, and Amit, this is the name as per this particular scenario, I and N. And for second one, there is another things have been created for S2. So there are two different objects we have created, S1 and S2. So next we are going to just display that particular method as S1.display and S2.display. So what will be the output? Can anyone tell me that what is the output, or what are the output that if we run this particular program, what is the output we are getting? What will be the output?
Sir, in the first line, 111 space Amit, and in the second line, 123 Ronit.
Okay, so this is the output that we are getting if we run this particular program, because in the particular values that we are passing this particular two values, that is triple one Amit and 123 Ronit. These values are actually going to be passed, and in the output section of S1, if we are mentioning that S1.display, then the S1 value, that is 111 Amit, and in the particular section of S2, that is 123, that Ronit is going to be displayed into the particular scenario. So the thing is, default and parameterized. The difference basic is that in default we didn't mention any type of parameters, and in the parameterized we are mentioning some particular parameters value that by which we are going to pass the values to our particular object. Right. So this is the particular scenario of constructor, the basics of default or the parameterized constructor. Now, then in this particular context of this constructor, there is one more term that is known as constructor overloading. Constructor overloading. So what is the scenario of constructor overloading? The thing is that when we have more than one constructor with different type of parameters list. So when we have more than one constructor with different type of parameter list, the scenario of this constructor overloading comes into the picture. So it is very means a task, or we can say the technique where different type of more than one constructor with different parameter list is present. So we need to maintain, we need to manage all the things. So in this case, the constructor overloading comes into the scenario. Now we will going to talk about this constructor overloading, constructor method overriding, all the things as scenario. But before that, the constructor, so the method or constructor, as I said in the initial of the constructor, that it is a block of or some block of code, the block of the method, a special type of method. So what is the difference? What is the differentiation between the Java constructor and a Java method? What is the basic difference if we talk about a Java constructor and a Java method? The scenario is that Java constructor, we are using a Java constructor to initialize a state of the object. So what are the states of an object? For that, we are going to use this Java constructor. But the thing is, Java method, it is used to expose a behavior. We are going to identify the behavior of an object by which we are using the Java method. Constructor must not or may don't have any return type value, but a Java method must have a return type value. And one more, that the constructor name is same as the class name, whereas the method may or may not be the same as our class's name, right? So the differentiation, the constructor is a special type of Java block or Java particular scenario where we are using in our program by some values or by some parameters, maybe it's a default constructor or maybe a parameterized constructor where we are putting some values to pass or to run the particular program. Right now, these are the scenarios, or these are the constructor scenario we are talking about. And in this part, the constructor overloading is present where more than one value or when more than one constructor is present with different parameter list, the techniques of constructor overloading comes into the scenario, right? So the basics of Java regarding the Java constructor, Java method, these are the present. And regarding to the next topic, we are going to talk about the part of Java inheritance. We are going to discuss on this particular topic of Java inheritance, but not in today. We are going to talk of this Java inheritance in our next classes. right? So the property of Java inheritance, Java aggregation, these are the scenario polymorphism we are going to talk in our next classes on Wednesday, because tomorrow is a holiday. So there will be no classes in tomorrow. So we are going to talk and discuss about the Java inheritance in our next classes on Wednesday, right? So this is all for today's class. So I think all of you have written your names in the chat box for the attendance purpose. If anyone misses, kindly write your names now. And I am looking the scenario that how we can provide or how I can provide the notes. But before still that time, let all the things sort out. Follow the departmental YouTube channel where you are going to get the videos of these classes, and you can get an idea from that. You can follow that, and after that, when your LMS ID and the things will be created, or we can create a Google, whatever the scenario, or departmental WhatsApp group as it is there, but we need to add you people as further we need some confirmation till the registration process over. After that, all the things will be very smooth. There will be no hassle for the notes, no hassle for the information from the department side, because right now you people are getting the information of the classes and all from the administration side, where a message or through a Telegram channel, if I'm not wrong, right? So all the things, all the information we are getting from that particular side. But after all the things will be sorted out or the registration process is over, you people will be directly in our hand. So we will communicate directly to you people. So then there will be no type of issue will be there, right? Okay. So this is all for today's class. We are going to talk and discuss again on Wednesday on inheritance and aggregation. Fine. So thank you all for joining into the session till the time of Wednesday. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you, sir.